Another day of OTAs in the books, Browns fans. It's Spencer German. It's Anthony Moeglin with you with the latest from the Cleveland Browns on SI. We implore you to subscribe to this channel if you haven't done so already. Make sure you follow along with all the Cleveland Browns news with the Cleveland Browns on SI. The actual website is at the bottom there, si.com/NFL/Browns, but also the YouTube channel where we post a lot of the press conferences from any of the Cleveland Browns media availability. Some of our during the season, you can find us post-game. You can find us with some post-practice stuff, especially during training camp. And, of course, more videos like this where we walk you through an assortment of topics and talk about them, debate them, figure out what's going on with your Cleveland Browns. And, Megs, we finally got nice weather. That was good.
Yeah, how about that? It's summertime. Hot. Hey, it's summertime in Cleveland. How about
it basically went straight from, it went like fall weather just to straight, Cleveland heat. It was 80 degrees. It was wild. But, hey, it was good to be outside and taking some football. I'll say that.
No doubt about it, and it looked like another great day. Obviously out at Berea, it was also fun. You talk weather-wise, hey, we were driving around yesterday, and Edgewater was packed to the brim. That was cool to see. Everyone was out and about. It was finally nice to have some good weather. We went from like you said, it was like the summer fall. I was calling it the May fall because it was just fall throughout the whole month of May, which I personally love. But we got some sunshine, got a little heat wave in, and had the football flying around again. Which I'm going to say it again. I said it the last two shows. I'll say it again, man. Nature is healing. It's always so good to see that the pigskin flying around.
I feel like we got to start doing a countdown to the season because it's extremely close at this point. We're single digits for training camp.
Not to the first game till
for training camp to open, we're single digits in terms of weeks. We're definitely still double digits for week one, but pretty soon here it's going to be single digits as well. So anyway, yes, it was a good day. It was the second OTA practice that was open to the media. Next week will be mandatory minicamp, and we'll get a chance to be there for 3 straight days. But obviously the quarterback conversation continues to take center stage. Is the thing everyone's watching. And in I don't want to say it was a surprise, but in a twist to how the week before went, Shedeur Sanders did take 11 on 11 reps. It was mostly during a red zone portion of practice against the 2s and the 3s on defense. And I thought he looked good. It was funny. He started the session with this boot play out to his left. It was a zone boot play, and he slipped and just fell. And it was well, that's an embarrassing start for his first 11 on 11 rep that we've seen in person. And then it just got better from there. He had a really nice throw on the sideline, had a really nice throw to Caden Davis in the back of the end zone that became a Sunday of the NFL season where everyone's he's got his toe in, he's got his toe down, he's in the end zone. And it actually looked like he didn't get the second foot down, but it was still a nice throw regardless. So we'll give him a gimme on that one with it being practice. But yeah, I think Shedeur looked good in his first 11 on 11s that we've seen in person. It was a weird day for the quarterbacks overall. We'll talk about that some more. But I do think that Shedeur stood out as probably the best of the quarterbacks on this second OTA that was at least open to the media.
Yeah, I think one thing that I'm proud of, at least on our channel, is we keep it in perspective. I think it's important to keep it in perspective too. Hey, again, second week of practice. You were there. I was not there. You were on site, but Shedeur is kind of going against some of the third and fourth stringers. Got a couple reps, and it's very hard to tell that if you're just watching via social media, right? He makes that one really nice pass, which you got an awesome shot of. You can find it over on Spencer's Twitter page, his personal account. It was a perfect throw right at the seam, but same thing, right? He's not going against Denzel Ward or MJ Emerson. You're throwing against some of the bottom tier guys. So it's supposed to look like that. You're happy that it did. And, you're just happy to see the progression continuing to go. I thought I had some good takeaways, which we'll get to in a little bit, just from, being able to view it, through the lens of all of your guys' videos. But obviously that throw stands out, and his progression on just continuing to get a little bit better and better, sharper and sharper as each of these practices goes by.
Yeah, for sure. And, I want to say this because we're trying to keep things in perspective here. I still think it's pretty obvious that Shedeur is the number 4 quarterback on this depth chart. Again, you could disagree with that. You can say he shouldn't be. You can say he should be the starter. There's a number of takes out there that could be had about Shedeur Sanders. I think he's better than maybe he's being given credit for right now, better than he was in terms of where he was drafted. But clearly they believe he has a lot to prove. Clearly they believe he has a long way to go to sort of be that guy that can actually like start for them and lead the offense and, they feel good about. So they're trying to give him the appropriate time to do so, and he's going to take some time to develop. So even though he took some 11 on 11 reps, he was still, the first round of 11 on 11s. It was mostly Kenny Pickett and Dillon Gabriel, and he was just kind of in the back, like taking some mental reps, throwing the ball in the air, like talking to guys, like he wasn't out there. So I think they've sent the message at this point, like they can tell us all they want. It doesn't matter, the order and all these different things. I think it's pretty obvious at this point, like he's the fourth guy on this depth chart. Dillon Gabriel at least seems to be the third guy in this depth chart. And then some monicum of Joe Flacco and Kenny Pickett is your starter. But like as good as Shedeur's looked at when we've seen him in certain situations, I think this is still like an uphill climb for him to try to be the starting quarterback for this football team.
And guess what, everybody? Like it's okay. It's June 5th, right? Like it is not. There's so much learning that still has to go. There's so much, so much growth that still has to go, especially for these young guys. And like a ton of football that has to be played. Like you don't know what injuries are going to do to this when you get through this offseason. So that'll certainly change things. You don't know how him and Dillon Gabriel are going to progress. But, very early on in the process, very early on in the conversation. And just really good to see, at least from my perspective, been through a lot of stuff, a lot of similar environments like this. Good to see like them stacking, right? You talked about that first play. He comes out of a naked bootleg and slips and falls. That's a move he's never done, right? He's never been under center, gone out to the left or the right, extended, and then had to loop around. That's a move he's never had to do in a game-like setting. And there's going to be some of those blunders like that. He'll laugh about it one day, but it's a step in the process. It's a brick that gets laid in his foundation.
Yeah. And like I said, I thought he looked good. I think in general, the quarterbacks looked bad on this practice. I don't know if we want to, I don't know. We're talking about the quarterbacks now, so we might as well just talk about it. I thought it was kind of just a down day for the quarterbacks in general. I think Kenny Pickett has maybe looked the worst of the quarterbacks, believe it or not, through the 2 days that we've been there. But for some reason, they love Kenny Pickett. And I think like right now, if I had gun to my head, I'd probably say he's going to be the starter week 1 because of how they've talked about him, the fact that they traded for him, even though it was only a 5th-round pick and Dorian Thompson-Robinson, you still gave up capital for this guy. And there was less Joe Flacco on Wednesday's practice. I think that just sort of speaks to they know what they're getting from Joe Flacco. Like he doesn't need the reps of, hey, let's, do some 7-on-7 stuff and like make sure I'm reading the defense right. Like he's been doing this for 17 years. He's 40 years old. It's the other guys in a younger quarterback room that sort of need those, especially like Kenny Pickett even needs them because this is a different offense for him. Like this is his first year here. So I think it's pretty evident at this point that they feel like Flacco is comfortable. They know what to expect with him, and they're trying to see like between the other three, like who's going to kind of emerge. And I think right now, Kenny Pickett obviously has the inside track, and the other guys are sort of chasing. Dillon, I thought, again, keeping in mind the context, a lot of these 7-on-7 things, it's like, are they going through their reads? Are they seeing the defense that the coverage is well, and then are they making the throw? It's important to keep in mind, like, so he had some bad throws, but also like it was more important that he was making the right throw than that he completed the pass at this juncture. I'm not saying that will never matter. He's going to have to clean those things up, yes. But right now, it's about those things. And I think Dillon has shown progress in that regard and shown some nice things. And that's, and I think they think very highly of him too because they took him 94th overall, obviously.
Yeah. And I would add too to kind of what you said about how they're treating the quarterbacks, and you talk about Joe Flacco being been there, done that type of a thing. Like next week's a big week. Like you when you get into that mandatory minicamp, that's a big deal. That's a big week. You need everybody to be kind of clicking on all cylinders. You want those rookies to not have a major drop off because now guess what? Everybody on the team is there and people are fighting for their jobs, right? This is it becomes less of, hey, I'm still feeling it out, and more of, don't mess with my job, right? And make sure that Kenny's in prime form for that. Make sure Dylan and Shedeur, there's no drop off there from when you go from those two veteran guys to those two rookies. So I think all of it is in the mindset of, hey, let's get prepared for our big real test, which comes next week when the whole squad gets into town. We get that full set with mandatory minicamp.
Yeah. I got a little bit of a hot take to maybe wrap this portion of the conversation up. I get the sense – no, that wouldn't be the take. That would just be like a prediction. I think – I don't know that we're going to see Shedeur Sanders this season. I think, like, barring injury. Injury is the one thing that throws a wrench into it. I think they truly want to slow play it with him as much as possible. I think they're going into the season thinking, like, we'll start a veteran as long as we can, and then we'll go to Dylan Gabriel next. And then, like, I don't know that you're going to see Shedeur Sanders even play this season. That's my hot take.
We need to clip it. We need to clip this because I'm totally different. No, not for that reason. I'm totally on a different path. Because
and to be clear, I feel differently because I think you need to evaluate both these quarterbacks to the best of your ability to get a sense of, like, do we have anything here before you draft one next year?
Well,
if you do that. But I just think, like, the way they've operated to this point, and again, it's small sample size, it's spring, it's all those things. I don't get the sense that, like, they are truly slow playing it with Shedeur Sanders. I don't think they want him out there in year one. That's my prediction.
I would say I think it's opposite. I think that they have to figure out what Shedeur is because of what you have coming down the pipe next year. Like, hey, you're at some point, in my opinion, you're going to have to roll him out. Even on draft night spent, we go back a month, I think and thought at the time and still continue to think that they're picking Dylan Gabriel to be a long-term cheap backup. Like, in my opinion, I was like, hey, you get someone in the third round, very cheap. You're going to know he's going to be good. You can kind of bring him up in this system and keep him there for when you bring in either some kind of a star, you get another young guy that he can kind of just be there for, and you have him for 4 years. And if he stays, great. If he doesn't, he can go on. Shedeur, on the other hand, I don't believe that you can keep him on the bench because of the personality, all of the stuff. Like, I think you got to figure it out of, like, hey, what is he before we get into having potentially 2 top 10 picks next season. Now, what I do think, though, is that the way the schedule lays out, I actually think it works out in the Browns' favor a little bit because you have 6 gauntlet games to start the season. You can throw Joe Flacco out there, be really competitive in all of them, get to New England in week 7, take your bye week in week 8, and come out with Shedeur on the other side to figure out, hey, dude, you got the rest of the season. Let's see what you got because we got to figure you out. That's the way I see it kind of unfolding. Who knows? It's going to be one or the other, and we're going to come back to this very clip. That's
been my stance in the beginning is, like, at some point during the season you pivot. You need to see as much of these 2 quarterbacks as possible. But I'm just going off of what I'm seeing right now. Right now, it just feels like they're giving Shedeur some, like, courtesy reps with 11 on 11s and, like, letting him try some things and see some things. And this time of year that works. But I think they truly are just trying to slow play it. Like, I think they are trying to ease him in as much as you can ease a guy in, and they don't really want to play him this year if they can avoid it. Now, he could make that undeniable if he goes out and plays, like, if he's great in the preseason or something. They might have to change that philosophy, and he maybe seizes that opportunity anyway, and he moves up the depth chart. If he's taking advantage of the reps that he gets and he looks really good, like, they can't lie to the players either. Like, if the players all get to the end of training camp and they're like, Shedeur's looked the best of anybody, what are we doing here? Like, they'll have to figure out what they're doing. But I think in their heart of hearts, if it's up to them, they will not play Shedeur this entire season. That's just me. I could be wrong. I don't think that's the way you should do it, but that's my feeling on it right now.
We're going to see. We're going to see how it all shakes. I think the locker room dynamic is going to be interesting for us to follow as well.
I can't wait to have the Shedeur people in my mentions. Like,
dude, oh my God.
This bum thinks they're not going to play him. How is he not going to play? He's the best quarterback in NFL history.
Have you ever seen football before, Spencer? I don't know if you have.
Whatever. Hey, if it's good for the channel, I'll take it.
Hey, one thing, Spence, before we move on here, I think it'll be interesting for us to follow along with all year on, like, or at least early on, what the locker room vibe is around the quarterbacks, because Shedeur's going to have, like it, hate it, whatever, like, Shedeur's going to have the popular vote, if you will, inside that locker room. That's going to be something interesting to watch and to manage, early on, I guess, in this offseason and the season as well.
Yeah, and that's a hard thing to gauge totally right now. We've only been out there 2 days. You're only seeing them on the field. Once we get in the locker room, you get a better idea of like, hey, who are players gravitating towards in those different things. So we'll see. But yeah, it's a good point by you. Well, speaking of guys that certainly command a lot of presence in the locker room, Myles Garrett, as you know, was back in the fold this year, and after his very what's the right phrasing here? An adventurous offseason where he requested a trade and then backed off of that because he got a massive contract. At the time, he was the highest paid non-quarterback in football. And there's been a lot said, Anthony, about like once you get paid that money, what it means for that player. And I think it's more so been said from like a leadership standpoint, which I always push back on. Like that's just not Myles necessarily. Mm-hmm. But I thought Jim Schwartz very poignantly had some interesting comments about Myles and why after you get paid like that, he's expecting even more from this future Hall of Famer. Here's his direct quotes, and we will react to it on the other side.
Yeah, I really think Myles is going to have the best season of his career, and has to, right? You know, I mean, with you know, I've told him before, you know, what's that Spider-Man quote? With great power comes great responsibility, right? You know, and that's with the big contract, with the notoriety that came along with that, and you know, with the process that took to get him to that point. There also comes, you know, there's always pressure in this league, but probably a little bit more so. And I think that brings out the best in players, and I know that'll be the case with Myles also.
So he flat out says he thinks Myles is going to have the best season of his career after this very eventful offseason where he put on this dog and pony show, then backed off it because he got paid. And I think that's the important key distinction here. Like if someone wanted to tell me, hey, Myles got paid, he better have like another gear out there on Sundays.
Yeah.
I'd be like, yeah, okay. But it's when people start saying like the whole like, well, now that he got paid, he has to be a leader. Like, okay, maybe you feel that way. And yes, like the highest paid players generally are looked at as the guys that should be leaders. I get that. I think again, Myles is a leader to a point. I think just the presence he commands as a future Hall of Famer in this league, people are going to gravitate towards him. They're going to listen when he speaks. But I have continually pushed back on the idea that like being a leader too is like there's something inherent about it as well. And so just because he got paid, like that doesn't change his makeup where it's like now he's going to be the rah guy that everybody wants him to be. But so again, I think what Jim Schwartz is alluding to is the right way to approach the whole Myles situation, which is like, yeah, now that he got paid, he better show up on Sundays, but he better show up like even more on Sundays. Like I want to see him finish, like, you know, win the sack title in a season, like those types of things. Like what other accolades can he get to sort of show like, yeah, this is why they paid me this money. That's why the Browns gave him the money at the end of the day. They didn't give him the money because they were like, we need you to be more of a rah leader than you've been. They gave him the money because he shows up on Sundays and he causes a lot of havoc for opposing quarterbacks. So I think I love these comments from Jim Schwartz, and I do think that is where the pressure should fall for Myles. It is more so on the idea that like now that you got paid, now that you made this whole scene of this situation and you got your money, what are you going to do on the football field next season?
Schwartz is the best, man. Like every time he talks, it's just football.
Yeah, he's great.
Like, it's the best.
Well, it's football on camera, but then off camera, he like is always rattling off baseball stats. This guy knows baseball so much; it's crazy.
Yeah.
Anyway,
no, he's the best, and it's like I think for me, it's more about it's less about the dollar amount and more about like what you said. Like you put on a circus at the start of the year, or like, you know, at the end, I guess the end of last year, you went on Super Bowl media row and just trashed the Browns and did all that stuff just to sign the big contract. And frankly, like Spence, I you guys, everyone jokes with me on our team. Like I do see everything through brown and orange glasses for sure, but like I honestly don't think like that doesn't bother me what he did. Like he kind of had to do it, right? Like if he wanted to go, that's fine. If he wanted to get paid a bunch, that's fine too. But like let's see it. Let's see it this year. Like I'd like to see a different level to his game, and I think, you know, Schwartz saying, yeah, I think it'll be his best year. And then he stopped and he turned and he goes, kind of has to be, right? Like it has to be. Yeah. I think that's awesome. And having that come from your coach, like he didn't mince words there. He didn't say anything disrespectful or anything, call you out, but like if you feel it, hey, that's coming from your guy. When you're off the field on third down, the guy you're going to have to answer to is that cat right there who just said, hey, we need you to be at your best this year. So that's good to see that coming right from the DC on what is it? It's going to be, June 5th here.
Yeah. I think that's a message that like very much resonates with the fan base, because they've been saying that for months now. Like, hey, he got paid. Now what? Like, and so for Myles, it's about showing up on Sundays. I think he's going to do that. Can he give you even more? Can he win another Defensive Player of the Year? Can he finish with the sack title? Like, all those different things come to mind. We'll see.
What?
Jim Schwartz is banking on it happening.
And I think last year is tough because Joel Bitonio, and we'll react to this a little bit more on that last block there when we get to it. But like Joel Bitonio said something earlier in the week at the golf outing that really stuck out to me. He's like, yeah, when he was talking about getting back to the old kind of offense, he's like, it helps our defense too when we're able to possess the football. He goes, so they're not out on the field 70, 80, 90 snaps. They're out on the field 50, 60 snaps. That all that stuff factors in to it. So I think that like the Browns as they're gonna, and we'll talk to it here in a little bit, as they revert back to what they once were, that's going to be very helpful for them because that game's going to shrink a little bit, and he's going to be much more fresh. Same with the rest of the crew being able to pin his ears back and get after the quarterback and do it when they're competitive in games and when they're not on the field the whole time.
Well, and I'll say this too. We've talked a lot about, like the one of the big things with the way this draft went for the Browns is the idea that like Mason Graham,
dude,
it's like we used to think that having a defensive end opposite of Myles Garrett was the key, right? Like, oh, you needed a guy that can on the other side command that pressure. I actually think Mason Graham being on this team helps Myles more, because having somebody on the opposite side, like, that's great, but having somebody right next to Myles, like, you can't now you can't commit like a guard and a tackle to Myles. Like, you can't double team him with those two guys. You can't get center because Mason Graham might eat up a center and a guard at the same time. So I think it's going to work wonders. And so for Jim Schwartz makes this grand statement about like, I think his best year is coming. He might be right, because Mason Graham might literally be the reason why his best year is coming.
It's Mason Graham and Mike Hall, like right next to each other. And Mike Hall has all the tools to be just as good, as a Mason Graham inside, maybe a little bit quicker, maybe doesn't eat up as much from he's not quite as big, but like that's going to be really, really big. And there's a couple other guys, Juwan Briggs inside. Like we talked about him at the end of last year. Like this dude is
Malik Collins, who they signed this offseason. And Malik Collins he was like top 10 in pressure. I think it was on quarterback pressures last year from the defensive tackle position, like from the interior defensive line. Like he's a good defensive lineman at getting pressure on quarterbacks. That
part's so huge. And then on the other side, like Alex McGuire and all these guys, like you're going to have Obo Okoronkwo. That was tough. But you're going to have some guys getting after the quarterback and taking the pressure off of Myles. I think that's huge. And I think it's going to pay dividends. And hopefully Schwartz is right. And hopefully that Myles can put together one of his better seasons here.
Myles obviously still not at OTAs. I think that was probably expected. Again, I continue to be not worried about that in the least. I'm sure some fans are still making us think about it, but it doesn't bother me. Other guys who weren't there included Joel Bitonio, who is around but doesn't participate in OTAs. He hasn't done that for a while in his career. Don't hear anybody complain about that, by the way. Jack Conklin wasn't there yet again, but again, understandable. He's a guy at this point in his career who just doesn't. David Njoku was the other big one. And Greg Newsome, who wasn't there last week, was out there this week. So he was back in the fold on the field.
He had mentioned too, and I'm sorry to cut you off, but he had mentioned something that I thought was really cool. He was talking at the golf outing on Cleveland Browns.
I know he's on 92 through the fan, I think. Oh, yeah, it was a Cleveland Browns Daily. Okay.
It's TBD, and he was like, he had some stuff going on with his baby. And it was like,
okay. Yeah, I didn't catch that, but that's good to know.
It was like, wait a second, you forget that these guys are humans as well.
Not that I cared anyway. Whatever reason he had, I get it. And the other person who was missing was Deontay Johnson for a second consecutive week. Now, this one's interesting because you bring up it was a nice segue because you bring up the Greg Newsome thing and how he had a situation with his baby. And so it's like, okay, anybody should be able to have empathy and be like, hey, I can understand why he's not there for OTAs when he's got something going on with his family. That I'd want someone to show me the same grace if I had a situation at work, right? So again, I have no problem that he wasn't there. And on that, in that regard, I was willing after the first week to give Dawand Johnson, sort of like not a pass, but like the benefit of the doubt is the best way to put it. I was willing to sit there and be like, hey, maybe he had something going on. Maybe he had something planned that he couldn't get out of. Maybe he just decided I've been here for some other stuff. I'm going to miss a week and then I'll be back. But now he isn't out there for the second week. And at this point, I have to sit there and wonder, what the hell is he doing? Like, does he want to make this team? Yeah. Kevin Stefanski and those guys will say like, yeah, we don't hold it against you if you don't show up to OTAs. Sure. Okay. That's fine. But like, it's reps that you're missing out on too. And it's not getting familiar with your team and in the roster that you're on and the quarterbacks that you could potentially play with and all these different things. And here's the thing, man, like, it's going to be easy for somebody like Dawand Johnson, the talent that he has, to make this roster at receiver because the receiver room has nobody in it. It's Jerry Jeudy, it's Cedric Tillman, who we're optimistic about, but still has a lot to prove. And that's it. Like, Dawand Johnson should have no problem making this roster. He's been basically gift wrapped like a job and likely a starting job on this team as a guy who is maybe on his last chance in the NFL because of just his attitude and the way he goes about things. Why isn't he jumping at the opportunity to like be in this building and make the most of this and like be present? And again, I get it. It's OTAs, it's voluntary. Everyone has family things going on, life things going on. Like that could be what's going on here. I have no idea, but I just can't help but be perplexed at this point as to like 1 week. Okay. Now you've missed 2 weeks of OTAs for a guy who, like I said, might not have another opportunity in the NFL after this one. It just seems bizarre to me that he still hasn't shown up for this phase of the offseason program, voluntary or not.
Yeah, voluntary or not. And one of the rules I live by, I love, is be who you can afford to be, right? And like Myles Garrett, you can afford to miss practice. David Njoku, Joe Batoni, all those guys you mentioned. But like Dawand, we got. Well,
and you trust that those guys are going to show up.
Yes,
too, like on Sundays, like they're going to make plays for you.
This is a new guy and a new offense with new teammates and all that stuff. Again, let's hold out. Let's go asterisks if there is something going on that's different. But like, if it were me, I guess, if I'll put it this way, if it were me, I'd be there, right? New team, to learn it, to be good. Because, hey, like you said, I think the bigger issue is that, hey, I don't think Dawand Johnson wants to be remembered as a Cleveland Brown, but like I think Dawand Johnson potentially still wants to play football in the NFL. And if this is his last chance at it, why not be there? Why not become buddy with Joe Flacco, who's going to throw the ball potentially all over the field? If he's the trigger man, he's going to rip that thing all over the field. I would be in his hip pocket all for the entire 2 weeks, 3 weeks that they're going to be here until they break for the rest of summer. I don't know. It's just me. I guess that's how I would have approached it, but different. I guess he's got a different idea.
It's bizarre. I don't know if there's a better way to put it, but I can't wrap my head around why he's not there. Does he want to make the team? I don't know. Well, but that's also part of the problem is like we don't know his motivation. We don't know if he is committed to this thing anymore because everywhere he's gone over the last couple of years, he's flamed out because of his own attitude issues and started in Pittsburgh with him like giving up on plays and they weren't going to stand for that. And so they traded him. And then he spent last season with 3 different teams. So so if you're not going to get through to him, you're not going to get through to him. Like this just might be who Dawand Johnson is. And maybe he's not on this roster, but I would just think, and again, like you said, asterisks, because sometimes there's other things going on that we don't know about. Maybe he's got something serious going on and he can't be there. And again, I'm willing to give you the benefit of the doubt, but I just can't wrap my head around 2 straight weeks. If it's not something like that, why aren't you here when this could literally be your NFL career on the line right now?
And correct me if I'm wrong. Like I said, you were there today. I saw some things that Cedric Tillman sat out of practice today. Like he was there, but he didn't practice. And
he was out.
The room was like Jerry Jeudy, and then like number 2 was like Luke Florio. Like it went from 1 to 9th on the depth chart. Is that an accurate assessment of what went down today?
So Cedric Tillman was out today. I don't think he was even out on the field, to be honest with you. I don't remember seeing him. So I could be wrong about that. Okay. So yeah, he was watching from the sideline, like no helmet or anything was basically it. So, he just wasn't involved. And so I don't know if it's anything serious. We didn't talk to Kevin Stefanski, so we didn't have a chance to ask him. But like Deontay Johnson is that next guy. So it's like, where is he? I just don't know.
And with the bigger underscoring issue here is that like the Browns receiver room is an issue. Like it is a big problem. It is Jerry Jeudy, and then it is a few spaces, and it's Cedric Tillman. It's a few spaces. It's Mike Woods, Deontay Johnson, the rest of the crew. Like it's not a great room, and I don't know. I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but like I guess if it were me and I was Deontay Johnson, I'd be in Berea right now, trying to see what I can do to make this team.
Yeah, it's just a weird situation, and of all the guys that haven't showed up, that's the one that I'm the most concerned with. But speaking of a guy who has shown up and looking very lean, by the way, looking very athletic, and looking like a totally different person in some respects, is Dwan Jones. Healthy for the first time in a while, and I thought he was awesome to talk to today or on Wednesday just about his process and what went on this offseason to get himself in better shape, what went on this offseason to prepare him for a left tackle competition or job that he's trying to earn. And I thought he had some really good things to say on this. We'll play a couple clips here. First, Dwan has dropped some weight. He mentioned that I think he still is around like his same playing weight, but he mentioned that it was like he converted like body fat to muscle essentially. So I think he has lost some weight, but he made it sound like, it's more so like how he was training, what he was doing, how he took his training seriously to keep himself in better shape. And those things are all important because last year we saw a guy who looked like he was, a step slow, overweight, not quite ready for to be a competitive offensive tackle. And I think it's clear that he's taking this very, very seriously as he gets a chance to start at left tackle. So here's what he had to say just about like his how he trained this offseason essentially.
Health-wise, better. I should say. I feel like I took care of my body a little bit better this offseason. That was the main thing. Just those small adjustments from last year to this year, and just work on them and get better. I lost a lot of body fat, and I pride myself on that.
Is there a change in diet, change in regimen? What specifically do you think? What can kind of contribute to that?
I would say Kelsey, which is our nutritionist, and so we worked all season together, and we came up with a great plan, and it definitely came together. It worked out for me.
So yeah, I give Dwan Jones a lot of credit because, like I said, last year there were some issues there. The injury happens. He was coming back from a knee injury, and then he fractured his leg. He did talk about that a little bit too, just like the journey back. It was long. But once he was kind of cleared, he got right to work and started putting the work in. And, clearly it's somebody who it almost just feels like this evolution, right? For like a young player, like year one, you're getting your feet wet. There's some signs that he could be good. Year two, you're coming off an injury. Maybe you didn't take it as seriously.
Man.
Now you're in year three. You're like, hey, if I want a second contract, like I gotta show up. Mm-hmm. And so clearly, like he's put in the effort to try to be great. And I think that says a lot about just like his mental capacity, his willingness and his care about football and wanting to play the sport. So I think it's been a lot of positive about Dwan Jones. And I do think like one of the best things that can come out of this phase of the program, training camp, all those things is like if Dwan Jones is healthy, the Browns may just sort of stumble into finding their future left tackle, which is crazy to think about.
And it would be a massive thing if they can find him. And it's one thing you can't forget that I'm going to be truthful about. Like I totally forgot, and I wrote a story today that's up on our site. You can get the link down below here, but about his injury last year. He broke his leg, like he broke his fibula. Like that is a massive injury for a massive guy. Like this is not this isn't a normal looking person breaking their leg. This is a 6'8" behemoth who weighs a boatload of he's huge, and that's a broken leg. That's a big deal. He did it against the Saints in Week 11. We all want to forget that game because it kind of got away from us. The Taysom Hill game, and in that game was a big deal for him. So he looks good. He looks happy too. Right? Like, I watched that whole interview and encourage you guys to go check it out on our YouTube page here, but like looks happy, looks excited for his opportunity. And dude, if he can be solid at left tackle, not even great, if he can be solid at left tackle, you feel really good about your two tackles, right? Barring any injury, you feel really good about Jack Conklin on the right side and Dwan on the left. If he can be good, that's two good bookends there. And we've seen how in the past, when you don't have those tackles solidified, it gets weird in the backfield. But if he can be that guy for the Browns, that would be an amazing thing to have stumbled upon late in that. What was it, 2022 draft? Yeah, he's coming in. 2023 draft.
Well, speaking of the left tackle spot, he also talked about like the challenge of playing that position when he's been a right tackle his entire career. Let's play you that clip, and I got something to say about it on the other side.
Yeah, this one's good.
My main thing is just to take a challenge on. I kept it as real as possible. AB, I personally don't like playing left tackle like that, but I don't care. Like, I'm athletic. It's with the nature of the game. I think it works. Can do it. Right to left. He struggle too. And if he can do it, I know I can. He's athletic enough. He's big enough, just like me.
So I know it was hard to hear there. I apologize for my crappy audio. But he basically said, like, I told Andrew Berry, I don't personally like playing left tackle, but I don't care. I'm athletic, so it comes with the nature of the game. He mentioned Tristan Wirfs and how Tristan Wirfs went from the right to the left side, and when he got to the NFL, and he probably struggled in the beginning too, but now he's one of the best tackles in the game, and how he's athletic enough and he's big enough like Dawand is. And so he feels like that's like a good comp for him to like, hey, I can do this too. And so I get it. Like, you might hear him say, like, I don't really like playing left tackle. And you might think, like, well, that's not good. But I think it's the fact that he is, despite that, he's clearly trying to put in the effort. And like that's why the two sort of stories here are connected. Like, him taking his health more seriously, him training the right way, that speaks to like, okay, I want to be great. And if that means like I do it on the left side, then so be it. I'm gonna work my ass off to try to get there. So I think it's interesting. I think it's great he's taking it seriously. And yeah, like he's been one of the best stories of camp so far. And like I alluded to, like the Browns could accidentally sort of find themselves with their left tackle. And I'll say, here's the thing. You talked about like, if he's just solid, I think the bar is kind of low right now. Like, obviously Jedrick Wills was in like almost an impossible situation because you were the next guy after Joe Thomas.
Never be the next guy.
You never want to be the guy after the guy.
Yeah.
But he was also so bad at times, and like there was questions about whether or not he loved football or loved the game. That if Dwan Jones is solid, it will almost feel like to people like, do we have Joe Thomas back? Is this the second coming up? Like, people are gonna feel like he's that good if he's just solid, like you said. And I think that is kind of the main goal here is like, what can he give you at that spot? And can he hold his own enough that you feel like this is something that you can build on in the future? And if he does, then you maybe have a question answered for next year when you got to find a left tackle. Or maybe he's not great, but he still proves like he's a good tackle. And you just move him back to the right side where he's comfortable because Jack Conklin's in the last year of his deal.
Yeah.
And then you kind of move forward there and you at least have one of those tackle spots figured out for years to come.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I think that one of the cool things is in this situation, like he said, like, yeah, I don't like doing it, but I'm going to do it. And if he's good, he's going to get paid good. Like,
more earning potential left tackle too. He can make more money.
You make a boatload of cash, man, at the left tackle position. So that obviously is on the table as well. I thought later on in the interview it was cool too. He was like, I don't know who was asking the questions, but someone was asking him like, what's it like switching from the right to the left? And he goes, all right, do everything you do.
That was me. I think I asked that question.
Was it you? Yeah, he's like,
me.
All right, eat breakfast with your left hand. Open the doorknob with your left hand. Type in the code to your house with your left. Like, do everything left-handed because that's what his job is now, to just reverse basically his mind for everything. I thought it was interesting. It was a funny little moment that he had, but thought it was really cool perspective. And, I think, like you said, I tend to agree. The Dwan Jones story right now is one that should excite Browns fans. And if it goes well the way it's supposed to, could be really, really good for the Browns in the short term and in the long term.
For sure. He's kind of been like an underlying storyline that people haven't talked probably enough about because they're so focused on the quarterback competition. But man, like it's been fun to see him work, and he's really, I think, turned himself into a player that there's some high hopes for. This, I think, is a good stage to just leave the floor open for any other thoughts on OTAs. Obviously you weren't there, but things that you saw that interest you. If you have any questions for me, Megs, as somebody who was there, I'm happy to answer them. Whatever. Whatever.
We're going back. We're going back to Tuesday at Westwood Country Club because that's when we got some.
That was Monday.
Monday at Westwood. For the Cleveland Browns Foundation golf outing, we got to talk to you. You got to talk to Batonio and Stefanski. Both those interviews again on our YouTube page, which I recommend go checking out. But I thought Joel Batonio had a lot of really, really good things to say, Spence, about him wanting to continue to play football, him wanting to be in Cleveland, him being excited about going back to, and I hinted at it earlier, but basically going back to the old days, going back to how they used to run the football, how they used to control the tempo of the football game. I thought that was really cool to hear, and I thought it was really refreshing to hear as well from him.
Yeah, listen, it's not a surprise because we've been talking about this a lot, like going back to the basics of Kevin Stefanski's offense, but to hear it from like the horse's mouth, like the guys who are responsible for getting this offense back on track, the offensive line and the veteran of that offensive line at that, I think it was kind of like this, okay, this is actually happening. It's reality now. And frankly, like him and Jack Conklin were the two most vocal people in the locker room at the end of the season last year about like why they needed to do this. So I think that should present some optimism. I think Batonio sort of presented an optimistic front or an optimistic outlook on the season because they're going back to those principles. I also thought like what he said about Mike Bloomgren, the new offensive line coach, was great, where he said, I'll use some PG words, but he said like the offensive line coach needs to be a jerk. And that's how he's just better coached that way. Yeah. And like, I think I'm not going to say it was a shot at Andy Dickerson, but I do think like, it all goes back into the same bucket of like, we're going back to what made us successful early on in Kevin Stefanski's tenure, his normal offense, coaches that like have a certain mentality about them, preach toughness, those types of things. And it should all add up to this offense looking much better than it did a year ago, just by default, because last year was miserable and you had zero quarterback play whatsoever.
Yeah, I could not agree more. And to hear it come from Joel, I thought was awesome. I know Orlovsky quote tweeted, I don't know whose tweet it was, whoever clipped it, but Orlovsky tweeted it and was like, finally, like we've all been wanting this for the last 2 seasons. Like, thank God it's coming back. So yeah, definitely excited there for sure. And I thought Kevin had some good things to say there at the golf outing as well, which obviously you can go, you can check out here. The big one from today. So I wrote about this. This was one thing that caught my eye. This was Scott Petrak put a video out. It was a Quinshon Judkins run. All right. And
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Something caught my eye because it was Joe Flacco at quarterback. On his left side was Quinshon Judkins. On his right side was Dylan Sampson. And it brought back vibes of Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt right next to each other. It brought back 2020 vibes. I do believe I tweeted it out. It feels like 2020 because that is music to my ears, man. They sent Sampson on like this like little fly motion behind Flacco, and he caught it and handed it off inside. Judkins looks like a freak. Those two in the backfield together is exciting, man.
Well, you brought up that play. I actually think the thing that stood out to me about that play, I did notice that the both running backs were there, but the thing that stood out to me was like Judkins did like this little like he like ran up to the line, like it was like he dipped underneath and then like bounced outside and just like left a bunch of dudes in the dust and gained a first down. It was like insane, and I think that's been, Judkins has been easy to notice, but also easy to forget because he's been so consistent. He looks so strong that you're just like, you know what you're getting from this guy in the practice field every day. Like he looks really good. He looks like he could play a game tomorrow and like put up big numbers against NFL teams. So he's been impressive. I think Carson Schlesinger, I tried to watch a little bit more of him on Wednesday. and you can see that ranginess in his game. I want to see him more once the pads go on as well.
Yeah,
but
he looks like a freaking transformer.
Yeah, he looks like he like. I don't want to say he's JOK because that's not fair to put those expectations on him. But he sort of said at one point that he models his game after JOK to an extent, and so I think there's some of that in there, and we've seen that a little bit already. I'm trying to think of anything else like really stood out from today. No, I mean I think we covered most of it with most of the topics, but those are just a couple other things that I think kind of caught my attention and that I've noticed.
I got one last thing. It's going to be a really, really long year watching Travis Hunter highlights. It's going to be long.
Did he do something?
Oh, you didn't see this? Oh yeah,
no,
breakup that he caught. He was playing DB and he was a sick it was a one-on-one and up the sidelines, deflected it with his right hand, batted up in the air.
I gotta look it up.
Almost caught it, and it's going to be – I'm shocked you didn't see this. It was maybe yesterday or the day before.
I'm looking it up right now.
Yeah, we're going to get a live reaction here.
Oh, wow, that's crazy.
It's going to be a long –
That's crazy.
It's going to be a long year.
Well, conversely, though, if the – I'm not – listen, the Jaguars got a potentially, like, franchise-altering player or, like, a foundational player for years to come, the Shohei Ohtani of football potentially, so fine. But do I really think like the Jags were only a Travis Hunter away from like being really good? Like they might still be a bottom 10 team in this league. And so if Travis Hunter's like great, fine. But if the Jaguars still like stink, like I think that's like the consolation is like, oh, well, we get 2 potential first round. Like the bet that the Browns made was basically if like we'll give up the rights to Travis Hunter to get maybe 2 players that are like top 5 picks, top 10 picks next year, or we get our franchise quarterback out of it. And I think that if that happens, like if the Browns end up with a franchise quarterback, I think Browns fans would take the franchise quarterback over Travis Hunter 10 times out of 10.
No doubt. I wrote about it the other day. Last year, PFF ranked the Browns 32nd out of 32 teams. And it's like, no, I don't think that's the case. I think they just had horrific quarterback play and it brings everything else down. Doesn't matter who you are, what you are, as long as you got a bad quarterback, you're going to have a bad team. And I agree with you. We're totally aligned there. But if Travis Hunter is going to make those highlight reel plays every week, it's going to be a long year for us Browns fans.
Yeah, it's funny because I thought that I think I left like night 2 of the draft and I was talking about this where I was like, yeah, I really wanted them to draft Travis Hunter because it would have made the team at least interesting this year because I just figured they're not going to be very good. And so I was like, yeah, it's fine. And then like the next day they took the other Colorado player that's like just as polarizing, but maybe not going to see the field potentially. But it's just kind of funny how it worked out where like they're still interesting, but it wasn't with the player that I thought they were going to be interesting.
It's so funny. So I was just cleaning up just all of our pages and stuff and just scrolled across the Cam Ward combine interview along with the Shedeur Sanders combine interview. And just to look back and see how it all shook out from like, hey, what Cam Ward had to say about the Browns and then what Shedeur had to say about the Browns. Oh, I
thought they were all possibilities back
then. I want to turn the franchise around, all that stuff. Little did he know he was going to get his opportunity coming after the 5th round. Wild ride there, but I thought it was funny.
So many possibilities back then. You have a lot of possibilities to find your Browns content, but we hope that you will choose us with the Cleveland Browns on SI.
That's professional stuff right there. You don't get that anywhere else.
That's rare for me, though, so I don't know how I pulled that one out of my ass, but I did. SI.com/NFL/Browns if you want to read any of our written content. I put up from Wednesday 7 observations, including Shedeur's session in 11-on-11s and what I took away from it. So you can find that. You can find some other great stuff. Meg's piece that he talked about with Quinshon Judkins and Dylan Sampson in the backfield together, dreaming of the 2020, 2021, 2022 Browns with Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb together. So a lot of good stuff that you can find there. Also, if you're watching us on the YouTube channel here with the Cleveland Browns on SI, hang out, watch some other videos, watch some of the press conferences from this week or previous press conferences, and also subscribe because the more the merrier. We want you guys coming out and hanging out on the page and getting your Cleveland Browns content here all off season long and, of course, all season long. once we get to September 7th and things really start going with week 1 kicking off. So as always, thank you, Megs. Good stuff as always. We'll be back next week. We'll have a lot more to talk about because it's mandatory minicamp. We'll have 3 days worth of practices to break down, and then we break for summer, and then it'll be the countdown to the start of training camp. So thanks for stopping by, and be sure to keep on following along with all things Cleveland Browns with the Cleveland Browns on SI.